October 6, 1909, Volume 9. The virtues of true love are to purify everything, to triumph over everything, to reach everything. After I received communion, my always lovable Jesus came for a little while, and since I had had a discussion with the confessor on the nature of true love, I wanted to ask Jesus whether I was right or wrong. And he said to me, "My daughter, it is exactly like that, as you were saying, that true love facilitates everything, excludes any fear, any doubt, and all of its art is in taking possession of the beloved. And when it has made her its own, love itself provides her with the means in order to preserve the object acquired. Now what fear, what doubt can a soul have about something that belongs to her? What can she not hope for? Even more, when she has come to take possession of it, love becomes daring and reaches the point of taking excesses up to the incredible. True love can say, 'There is no longer yours and mine. I am yours, and you are mine.' So we can dispose of each other, delight in each other, enjoy each other. If I have acquired you, I want to use you as I please." How can the soul in this state of true love go fishing for defects, miseries, weaknesses, if the object acquired has condoned her everything, embellishes her with everything, and the object that she possesses keeps purifying her continuously? These are the virtues of true love: to purify everything, to triumph over everything, to reach everything. In fact, what love can there be for a person whom one fears, about whom one doubts, from whom one does not hope for everything? Love would lose the best of its qualities. It is true that even in the saints one can see this, and this shows that in the saints love can be imperfect and can have its variety, according to the state in which they find themselves. In you, the thing is very different. Since you should be in heaven with me, and you have sacrificed this for love of obedience and of your neighbor, love has been confirmed in you. The will has been confirmed in not offending me. Therefore your life is like a life that has already passed, and this is why you do not feel the burden of your miseries. So, be well attentive on what befits you, and on loving me up to the infinite love. October 6, 1911, Volume 10. Jesus hides himself to be able to chastise. With Jesus the soul can do everything. Without him she can do nothing. I was thinking to myself, how is it possible that blessed Jesus, in order to chastise the people, has to deprive me of his lovable presence? I would like to see whether he does not go to other souls to make himself seen. I believe that these are excuses, or that there is something in me which prevents him from coming. And Jesus, just barely making himself seen, told me, "My daughter, it is really true that I do not come often because of the chastisements. And suppose, if you'd like, that I go to someone else. This says nothing. Everything is in the state that the souls have reached through my grace. For example, if I went to a soul who is a beginner, or has not reached the possession of me as if I were all her own, she would do little or nothing to me. She would not have that daring, that confidence to disarm me, and to bind me as she pleases. These are all timid before me, and with reason, because they have not entered into me as the owners, so as to be able to dispose as they wish. On the other hand, when the soul has reached the point of possessing me, she is daring, confident. She knows all the divine secrets, and with reason she can say to me, "If you are mine, I want to do what I want." And this is why I hide, to be able to act, because they would suffer greatly in uniting with me to chastise, or they would prevent me from doing it. Here, my daughter, is the necessity that I do not manifest myself to you. Otherwise, I want to hear it from you yourself. What would you do to me? How much would you not be opposed? And I, "Certainly, Lord, I would have to stick to all that you yourself have taught me, to love the creatures as your images and as yourself. If I could see you as before, you would never be able to permit the war in Italy. But you hide, and I remain as nothing, and pure nothing. With you I can do everything. Without you, I can do nothing." And Jesus, "You see, you yourself say it. So if I came to you, the war would be reduced to a game, while my will is for it to bring sad and grave consequences. Therefore I repeat to you my refrain: courage, be at peace, be faithful to me. Do not act like a child who makes fusses for everything, but like a heroine. I do not really leave you, but I will remain hidden in your heart, and you will continue to live of my will. And if we don't do it so, the peoples will reach such excesses as to strike terror and fright." October 6, 1921, Volume 13, The Horror of Man in the State of Sin, The Beauty of Man in the State of Grace. I was praying and adoring the wounds of my crucified Jesus, and I thought to myself, how ugly sin is for reducing my highest good to such a harrowing state. And my always lovable Jesus, leaning his most holy head upon my shoulder, sighing, told me, "My daughter, sin is not just ugly, but horrible. It is the black point of man. As he sins, he undergoes a brutal transformation. All the beauty I gave him is covered with such ugliness, has to be horrible to the sight. And it is not only the sense which sins, but the whole of man runs along with it. So sin is his thought, his heartbeat, his breath, his motion, his step. His will has dragged man to one single point, and from his whole being he emanates thick darkness that blinds him, and a poisonous air that poisons him. Everything is black around him. Everything is deadly. And whoever approaches him puts himself in a state of danger. Horrible and frightening, such is man in the state of sin." I remained terrified, and Jesus continued, "If man is horrible in the state of guilt, he is also beautiful in the state of grace and of doing good. Good, be it even the tiniest, is the bright point of man. As he does good, he undergoes a celestial, angelic, and divine transformation. His good will drags his whole being to one single point. Therefore good is his thought, his word, his heartbeat, his motion, his step. Everything is light, inside and outside of him. His air is balmy and vital, and whoever approaches him places himself in safety. How beautiful, gracious, attractive, lovable, striking is the soul in grace, in doing good. So much so that I myself remain enamored. Each good she does is one more shade of beauty that she acquires. It is a greater likeness to her Creator, which makes her be distinguished as his child. It is divine power that she puts in circulation. All the goods she does are spokesmen between heaven and earth. They are couriers, the electric wires which maintain the communication with God. October 6, 1922, Volume 14. The first plane of the human acts, changed into divine, in the divine will, was done by Jesus. Luisa is the first one to live in the divine will. I was praying when my always lovable Jesus came, and throwing his arms around my neck told me, "My daughter, let us pray together. Let us enter into the immense sea of my will, so that nothing may come from you which is not plunged in it." The thought, the word, the heartbeat, the work, the step, everything must take its place in my will. And for each thing you do in it, you will take one more possession and acquire a greater right. All human acts, according to the purpose of creation, were to have life in my volition, and form in it their plane of all human acts, changed into divine, with the mark of supreme nobility, sanctity, and wisdom. It was not our will that man withdraw from us, but that he live with us, growing in our likeness and operating with our own manners. This is why I wanted that all his acts be done in my will, to give him the space in which to form his own little river within the immense sea of my will. I acted like a father who possessed great lands, and said to his son, "I give you possession of the center of my possessions, so that you may not go out of my boundaries, and may grow in my riches, with my own nobility, and with the greatness of my works, and so that all may recognize that you are my son." What would one say of him if he did not accept the great gift of his father, and went to foreign lands to live out of miseries, disennobling himself under slavery of cruel enemies? Such was man. Now, this plain, this little river in my volition, I want it from you. Let each one of your thoughts flow in it, so that at the reflections of our intelligence, which is thought of each one, it may rise over each intelligence, and give us the homage of each thought in a divine manner. Let your words and works flow as well, so that at the reflection of our word Fiat, which made all things and is word of each one, and at the reflections of the sanctity of our works, which is life and motion of all, they may rise and hover over all, giving us the glory of each word and of each work, with our own word Fiat, and with the very sanctity of our works. My daughter, if all that is human, be it even one thought, is not done in my will, the human plane takes no possession, the little river is not formed, and my will cannot descend upon the earth to make itself known and to reign. On hearing this, I said to him, "My love, Jesus, how is it possible that after so many centuries of life of the Church, which put out so many saints, and many of them have astonished heaven and earth with their virtues and with the wonders they performed, they did not operate fully in the divine will, so as to form that plane you are talking about? Were you waiting just for me? The most unable, the most bad and ignorant one, in order to do this? It seems just incredible. And Jesus: "Listen, my daughter, my wisdom has means and ways which man ignores, such that he is obliged to lower his forehead and adore it in mute silence. And it is not up to him to dictate the laws to me. Whom I should choose, and the appropriate time, which my goodness disposes. Besides, first I had to form the saints, who were to resemble me and copy my humanity in a more perfect way, as much as is possible for them. And this I have already done. Now my goodness wants to move further, and wants to give in greater excesses of love. And therefore I want them to enter into my humanity and copy what the soul of my humanity did in the divine will. If the first ones cooperated with my redemption in order to save souls, to teach the law, to cast away sin, being limited within the centuries in which they lived, the second ones will go beyond, copying what the soul of my humanity did in the divine will. They will embrace all centuries, all creatures, and rising above all, will place in force the rights of creation which are due to me, and which concern all creatures, bringing all things to the prime origin of creation, and to the purpose for which creation was delivered. Everything is ordered in me. If I delivered creation, it must return to me ordered, just as it came out from my hands. The first plane of the human acts, changed into divine in my will, has already been done by me. I left it as though suspended, and the creature, except for my dear and inseparable mamma, knew nothing. This was necessary. If man did not know the way, the door, the rooms of my humanity, how could he enter inside of me and copy what I did? Now the time has come for the creature to enter into this plane, and do also something of her own within mine. What is the wonder if I have called you as the first one? Besides, it is so true that I have called you as the first, since to no other soul, though dear to me, have I manifested the way to live in my will, the effects of it, and the wonders and goods which the creature operating in the supreme volition receives. Check as many lives of saints as you want, or books of doctrines. In none of them will you find the prodigies of my volition operating in the creature, and of the creature operating in it. At the most you will find resignation, union of wills, but in not one of them will you find the divine will operating in her, and she in it. This means that the time had not come in which my goodness was to call the creature to live in this sublime state. Even the way I make you pray cannot be found in anyone else. Therefore be attentive. My justice demands this. My love is delirious. So my wisdom disposes everything in order to obtain the intent. It is the rights, the glory of creation that we want from you. October 6, 1924, Volume 17, How the Divine Will is in the Creature like Heartbeat in the Center of the Soul. I was fusing myself in the Holy Divine Will, and my sweet Jesus, moving in my interior, told me, "My daughter, how beautiful it is to see a soul fusing herself in my will. As she fuses herself in it, the created heartbeat takes its place and life in the uncreated heartbeat, and forms a single one, running and beating together with the uncreated heartbeat. This is the greatest happiness of the human heart, to palpitate in the eternal heartbeat of its creator. My will makes it fly, and the human heartbeat flings itself into the center of its creator. Then I said to him, "Tell me, my love, how many times does your will go around through all creatures?" And Jesus, "My daughter, in each heartbeat of creature, my will forms its complete round through all of creation. And just as the heartbeat in the creature is continuous, and if the heartbeat ceases, life ceases, in order to give divine life to all creatures, my will, more than heartbeat, goes around and forms the heartbeat of my will in every heart. See, then, how my will is in every creature, as primary heartbeat, because her own is secondary. And if I feel any heartbeat of creature, it is by virtue of the heartbeat of my will. Even more, my will forms in her two heartbeats, one for the human heart, as life of the body, and one for the soul, as heartbeat and life of the soul. But do you want to know what this heartbeat of my will does in the creature? If she thinks, my will runs and circulates like blood in the veins of the soul, and gives her the divine thought, that she may put aside the human thought, and give the place to the word of my will. If she works, if she walks, if she loves, my will wants the place of her work, of her step, of her love. The love and the jealousy of my will in the creature is so great that while it palpitates, if the creature wants to think, it becomes thought. If she wants to look, it becomes eye. If she wants to speak, it becomes word. If she wants to work, it becomes work. If she wants to walk, it becomes foot. If she wants to love, it becomes fire. In sum, it runs and wanders through every act of the creature in order to take its primary place, which is due to it. But to our greatest sorrow, the creature denies it this place of honor, and gives place to her human will. And my will is forced to remain in the creature as if it had no thought, no eye, no word, no hands, no feet, unable to carry out the life of my will in the center of the soul of the creature. What sorrow! What highest ingratitude! But do you want to know who gives me free field and lets my will operate as heartbeat of life within her soul? One who lives in my will. Oh, how well does my will carry out its life, becoming thought of her thought, eye of her eye, word of her mouth, heartbeat of her heart, and so with all the rest. Oh, how quickly we understand each other with one who is living in my will, and my will obtains the intent of forming its life in the soul of the creature. And not only in the creature with reason does my will hold its primary place, being like heartbeat which, giving circulation to the life of the soul, runs to give life to all the acts of the creature. But in all created things my will holds its primary place and circulates as heartbeat of life, from the tiniest created thing up to the greatest one, and none of them can move from the power and immensity of my will. It becomes life of the blue heavens, maintaining their celestial color, ever new and vivid. Nor can it fade, change, or turn pale, because my will wanted it to be so, and once it has been established, my will does not change. My will is the life of the light and of the heat of the sun, and with its heartbeat of life, it preserves its light and heat ever equal and alive, keeping it immobile in my will, unable to move, to grow, or to decrease, in the good it must do to all the earth. My will is life of the sea, and forms the murmuring of its waters, the darting of the fish, the roaring waves. Oh, how my will shows off the power it contains within itself, and it carries out its life with such great majesty and absolute dominion in the created things, that neither can the sea do without murmuring, nor can the fish do without darting. Even more, I could say that it is my will to murmur in the sea. It is my will to dart in the fish. It is my will to form the waves. And with its roaring, it makes all hear that its life is there present, which can do anything it likes the best. My will is heartbeat of life in the bird that warbles, in the cheeping of the chick, in the lamb that bleats, in the turtle dove that moans, in the plants that vegetate, in the air that everyone breathes. In sum, in everything, my will has its life, and with its power it forms the act it wants. So it maintains harmony in all created things, and forms in them the different effects, colors, offices, which each of them contains. But do you know why? To make myself known to the creature, to go to her, to court her, to love her with as many different acts of my will, for as many things as I created for her. My love was not satisfied with placing in the depth of her soul my will as heartbeat of life, but wanted to place my will in all created things, so that also on the outside my will might never leave her, and so that the creature with reason might be preserved and grow in the sanctity of my own will, and all created things might be an incitement, an example, a voice and a continuous call to her, to make her always run in the fulfillment of my will, the only purpose for which she was created. But the creature becomes deaf to the so many voices of creation, blind to the sight of so many examples, and if she opens her eyes, she fixes them on her own will. What sorrow! Therefore, I recommend that you never go out of my will, if you do not want to multiply my sorrow and lose the purpose for which you were created. October 6, 1926, Volume 20, New Martyrdom. One who does not do the divine will cuts off the divine life within oneself. Luisa is deprived of the writings. Jesus consoles her, showing her how everything is written in the depth of her soul. I was all immersed in the intense pain of the privation of my sweet Jesus, and I said to myself, "My Jesus, how can you not have compassion on this little daughter of yours, who, feeling without you, feels life being snatched away from her? It is not just a pain that I feel. That would be more bearable. But it is life itself that I feel missing in me. I am little. I am weak. And if for nothing else, at least because of my excessive littleness, you should have had compassion on this poor little one, who is almost in continuous act of feeling life missing in her, and of taking it back, only to feel herself dying again. My Jesus, my love, what kind of new martyrdom is this, never before felt? To die times upon times, and yet never dying. To feel life missing in me, without the sweet hope of taking flight toward my celestial fatherland. Now, while I was thinking of this, my always lovable Jesus moved in my interior, and with a tender tone told me, "Little daughter of my will, courage. You are right that it is life that you feel missing in you, because being deprived of me, you feel the life of your Jesus missing, ending within you. And with reason, tiny little one as you are, you feel the hard martyrdom of life ending in you. But you must know that my will is life, and every time creatures do not do it and reject it, it is a divine life that they reject and destroy within themselves. And do you think that the pain, the continuous martyrdom of my will is something trivial? In feeling so many acts of life that it wants to make arise in creatures with so much goodness, being cut off from itself as though by a deadly sword? And in place of this divine life that was cut off within them, they make arise the life of passions, of sin, of darkness, of weaknesses. Not doing my will is divine life that creatures lose. And this is why, since it reigns in you, by depriving you of me, it makes you feel the pain of the many divine lives that creatures cut off from it, to be repaired and compensated in you for the many acts of life that they make it lose. Don't you know that in order to form the kingdom of the divine Fiat, it must find in you as many of its acts for as many as it has lost? And this is the reason for the alternation of my presence and my absence, to give you the occasion to form many acts of submission to my will, to make these acts of divine life that others have rejected enter into you. And then don't you remember that when I manifested to you your mission regarding the eternal Fiat, I asked of you the sacrifice of suffering as many deaths for as many creatures as were coming out to daylight, for as many as had rejected the life of my will? Ah, my daughter, not doing my will is divine life that creatures reject. It is not like not practicing the virtues, where they reject gems, precious stones, ornaments, garments, that if one does not want them, one can do without. Rejecting my will, instead, is to reject the means in order to live. It is to destroy the font of life. It is the greatest evil that can exist. Therefore, one who does so great an evil does not deserve to live. On the contrary, he deserves to die to all goods. Do you not want, then, to compensate my will for all these lives that creatures have cut off from it? And in order to do this, you must suffer, not a pain, but a lack of divine life. That is my privation. In order to form its kingdom in you, my will wants to find in you all the satisfactions that creatures have not given to it, all of its lives that it was to make arise in them. Otherwise, it would be a kingdom without foundation, without giving it the rights of justice, and without the due reparations. Know, however, that your Jesus will not leave you for too long, because I too know that you cannot live under the press of such a hard martyrdom. In addition to this, I felt afflicted because when the Reverend Father came, who must occupy himself with the printing of the writings on the most holy will of God, he wanted to have all the writings delivered to him, leaving me not even those whose copies he already had. So the thought that the most intimate things between me and Jesus were out, and being unable even to go over again what Jesus had told me about his holy will, tormented me. And Jesus, coming back, told me, "My daughter, why do you afflict yourself so much? You must know that what I made you write on paper, I myself first wrote in the depth of your soul, and then I made you put it on paper, Even more, there are more things written in you than on the paper. Therefore, when you feel the need to go over again what regards the truths on the supreme fiat, just take a look into your interior, and immediately you will see again what you want. And so that you may be sure of what I am telling you, look right now into your soul, and you will see, all in order, what I have manifested to you. Now, as he was saying this, I looked into my interior, and in just one glance I could see everything. I could also see what Jesus had told me, and I had neglected to write. So I thanked my beloved good, and I resigned myself, offering all to him, my hard sacrifice, and asking in return to give me the grace that his will be known, loved, and glorified. October 6, 1927, Volume 23. How one who works in the divine will works in the divine properties. How she forms the sun. How God wants to find the soul in all created things. I was continuing my acts in the divine fiat, and my sweet Jesus, moving in my interior, told me, "My daughter, one who operates in my will works in my divine properties, and she forms her acts within my interminable goods of light, of sanctity, of love, of happiness without end, acts that are transformed into suns. These suns are produced by my own qualities that have made themselves available for the act of the soul, for her decorum, and so that these acts might be worthy of her Creator, and might remain as perennial acts in God himself, glorifying him and loving him with his very divine acts. So before he sinned, Adam formed as many sons in his Creator for as many acts as he did. Now, one who lives and operates in my will finds these sons made by him, and therefore your whole commitment must be to follow the first acts of creation, and to take your workplace near the last son, or act, that Adam did when he possessed the unity of will with his Creator. You must make up for what he did not continue doing because he went out of my divine properties and his acts were no longer sons. In fact, he no longer had my divine qualities in his power that lent themselves to let him form sons. At the most, as good as they might be, his acts reduced themselves to being tiny little flames, because the human will without mine does not have the virtue of being able to form sons. It lacks the raw materials. It would be as if you wanted to form an object of gold without having the metal of gold in your power. As much good will as you might have, it would be impossible for you. My will alone has sufficient light to let the creatures form sons, and it gives this light to one who lives in it, within its properties, not to one who lives outside of it. So you must make up for all other creatures who have not possessed the unity with my will. Your work is great and long. You have much to do within my endless boundaries. Therefore be attentive and faithful. Then I continued my acts in his adorable volition, and as I was going around throughout the whole creation, my highest good Jesus added, "My daughter, just as my divine will is spread in all creation, so do I want to find you, united with it, in all created things, as though spread within each of them. You will be the heart of the earth, that I may find in your life, palpitating within it, attesting to me, with its continuous heartbeat, the love of all its inhabitants. You will be the mouth of the sea, letting me hear your voice in its gigantic waves, and in its continuous murmuring, praising me, adoring me, thanking me, and giving me smacking kisses, affectionate and pure, in the darting of the fish, for yourself and for those who cross the sea. You will be the arms of the sun, so that as you extend and expand within its light, everywhere I may feel your arms embracing me and clasping me tightly to tell me that it is me alone that you seek. It is me alone that you want and love. You will be the feet of the wind, to run after me and let me hear the sweet treading of your steps that never stop running, even if you do not find me. I am not content if I do not find my little daughter in all the things created by me for love of her. I ask all creation, is the little daughter of my will there? For I want to enjoy her and be with her. And if I do not find you, I lose my enjoyment and my sweet amusement. After this, I followed my beloved Jesus in the acts he did in redemption. I tried to follow him word by word, work by work, step by step. I wished nothing would escape me, so that I might press him and ask him, in the name of all his acts, tears, prayers, and pains, for the kingdom of his divine will in the midst of creatures. And my adored Jesus told me, "My daughter, when I was on earth, my divine will that reigned in me by nature, and that same divine will that was present and reigned in all created things, kissed each other at each encounter, and longing for their encounter, they would make feast. And all created things would compete in order to meet with me and give me the homages that befitted me. As the earth would hear my steps, it would become green again, and flower under my feet to give me homage. As I passed by, it wanted to release from its bosom all the beauties it possessed, the enchantment of the most beautiful flowerings, so much so that many times I had to command it not to make these demonstrations. And the earth, to give me honor, would obey, just as to give me honor it would flower. The sun always tried to meet with me, to give me the homages of its light, unleashing all the varieties of beauties and colors from its solar bosom before my eyes, to give me the honors I deserved. Everything and everyone tried to encounter me in order to make their feast for me. The wind, the water, and even the little bird, to give me the honors of its trilling, warbling, and singing. All created things recognized me, and competed among themselves to see which one could honor me and make feast for me the most. One who possesses my divine will has the eyesight to be able to recognize what belongs to my will itself. Man alone did not recognize me, because he did not possess the eyesight and the fine sense of smell of my will. I had to tell him in order to make myself recognized. But with all my telling, many did not even believe me, because one who does not possess my divine will is blind and deaf, and without the sense of smell to be able to recognize what belongs to it. Not to possess it is the greatest unhappiness of the creature. He is the poor cretin, blind, deaf, and mute, who, not possessing the light of my divine fiat, uses the very created things by taking the excrements that they release, while leaving inside of them the true good that they contain. What sorrow to see creatures without the nobility of the life of my divine will. End of October 6th. Fiat.